One company that has committed to implementing decarbonization measures is Telco giant PLDT. And now to talk to us more about that, as well as their other sustainability efforts, we have with us on the show Melissa Vergel de Dios, First Vice President, Chief Sustainability Officer, and Head of Investor Relations of PLDT and Smart. Ma'am, good morning.
Morning, Diego.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Okay, ma'am, let's get right to it and let's start off with our question. Now, many businesses are now incorporating carbon offset programs into their sustainability strategies. Could you explain how PLDT and Smart are utilizing carbon offset initiatives to mitigate their environmental impact? Now, what types of projects or investments are being made in this sector?
Okay, I guess in the Philippines, carbon offsets are not yet very mature. But in concept, what it is what you cannot reduce, you offset. So for PLDT, we're doing two things. One is we're doing a reduction program. We have a decarbonization roadmap that aims to reduce Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions by 40% by 2030 against the baseline of 2019. So we have a program that includes energy efficiency, the use of e-vehicles, the use of renewables, and the like. But I guess coupled with that, we're looking at supporting biodiversity projects, and not biodiversity by itself, but those that we enable using technology. So certain projects that use telco technology to preserve biodiversity or for biodiversity management, counting among them one, is our peatlands project in Kaimpugan, that's in Agusan. You can imagine that there's something like over 5,000 hectares of peatlands in that place that is basically a carbon sink, meaning they keep carbon within the earth. And the estimated amount of carbon that's being sunk or being kept from being released into the atmosphere is something like 23 million metric tons of carbon. So you have to preserve that because on an annual basis, the global emissions that the planet actually generates is 50,000 something metric tons, right? So quite a lot. And then we have a project that preserves rainforests. We have a project that helps preserve mangroves, but all using telco technology, using the cloud, using SMS technology to send signals. So not by itself, standalone, but something that uses our technology to enable the preservation of biodiversity.
Now, just clarify, this is all in the pipe and all ongoing also at the same
Those
time?
are all ongoing. And not by
So
ourselves. We believe in partnerships. So I guess in preserving the planet, you can't do it alone. And no one entity can do it alone.
That's true.
So we're partnered with some of our network vendors. We're partnered with the local government, and we're partnered with the government, DENR. So both national, local government. So partnering with many entities to be able to deliver, I guess, a better planet for the next generation.
Interesting. Let's go on to the next. Biodiversity conservation is gaining importance, as we all know, globally, because it's a big issue right now. But can you share specific examples of like how PLDT and Smart are contributing to this preservation, particularly, ma'am, in the efforts of local ecosystems?
Yeah. So, for example, our project in Pampanga, Sasmuan, is partnered with one of our network vendors. And initially, what we wanted to do was to capture, I guess, pictures from that area that we're able to send and support ecotourism. So they're able to identify bird species that we can document and encourage ecotourism. The other one that's interesting is the rainforest connection, again in partnership with one of our equipment vendors. And what it does is it sends sounds of the forest to the rangers, because obviously the area is very large, right? And you can't send people on the ground to monitor. But when they hear sounds of what sounds like maybe something that a chainsaw, then they can direct the rangers to go to that particular area, and it's usually illegal loggers that are in that area. So that's using telco technology, but helping preserve biodiversity. So those are just two examples of some of the projects that are ongoing that we need to scale up. So they're very small projects, admittedly, but what we want to do is scale them up so that we can do more.
That's right. But I guess the impact is big because it solves manpower problems.
Yes.
Okay. And the proliferation of e-waste.
Yes.
Okay. Is also a pressing issue. Now, could you elaborate on what PLDT's strategy is for this?
Yeah. So PLDT by itself is not a generator, I guess, a producer of e-waste. But our service is enabled by the use of things like mobile phones, modems, and obviously you can imagine as people use more technology, there's more gadgets out there. So if you can imagine, we have more than 60,000 thereabouts million subscribers. Each one has a phone, each one has a charger, each one has a cord. Yeah, and every so often people upgrade their phones. So I guess those e-waste, if you don't treat them properly, they have the potential of contaminating our water source. And when that happens, that's dangerous to human health. So it is incumbent upon us, we feel, to be able to be responsible by encouraging e-waste programs. So we launched a program called Be Kind, Recycle, which is a program that aims to foster circularity and recycling as an act of kindness for people and the environment. And as directed by our CEO, when we do our sustainability programs, they have to be embedded in what we do, in our DNA and in our business as usual operations. So we've started to include, let's say, e-waste bins for collection in our home blitzes, so PLDT Home, that's weekend blitzes. And we have bins where people can put their e-waste there, or let's say smart stores in the SM chain already have bins. And some of our enterprise customers are actually asking for help as to what they do with the e-waste that they've collected. So we're trying to scale up this project so that we can collect, treat, and store and dispose properly. And as a consequence of that, aside from protecting the environment, we're helping enable livelihood, because the people who make baklas, the people who disband or dismantle the e-waste, are actually given a chance to work decently and be compensated for the work that they do.
So they're employed and they're paid.
Yes. Yes, and actually we've elevated their, I guess, the way they do things, because normally the baklas happens in the side streets, in the sidewalks. So the one project that we actually launched in Baguio, for example, there was a TSD facility that we constructed, and people who used to do this are actually housed in a decent structure, and then the extraction of minerals from e-waste is done more systematically.
So it's systematic and organized.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And as the telecommunications industry continues to grow ever so every day, how is PLDT working to ensure that its network and expansion infrastructure development align with sustainability goals, particularly, ma'am, in terms of reducing carbon emissions?
Yes. So effectively, when we roll out our network, when we go out, there are communities where we put our network facilities in. In some of those communities, there are indigenous peoples. So we make sure that they're cared for. The other thing is, when we operate our cell sites, we have to make sure that they are also operating efficiently, because as we reduce more power, then we reduce GHG emissions, and that's kinder for the planet. So it's a very responsible and meaningful way of rolling out network, connecting the unconnected, but making sure that the lives that we touch in the course of running our network are also protected. And then later on, I guess there's obsolescence in the network equipment, not only in the phones and the devices, but we also do the recovery of our network equipment to make sure that they are disposed of as well in a very responsible manner. So we have accredited vendors and partners, DNR, Eco Waste Coalition, IRI, UNIDO, which is the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, who were partnered with to be able to carry out these things.
You said, ma'am, you were reducing the power of your power. Well, is there a downside to that in terms of how users are affected?
So we make sure that the service quality is not affected when we try to reduce power. Now, I'll give you a very practical example that doesn't even require any investment. If we reduce the temperature in a cell site, there are no people, some of our cell sites are unmanned, but the temperature, let's say, is set at 23 degrees. That's office temperature. There's no reason why we can raise the temperature in the cell sites to what the equipment can take. So if we raise that to, let's say, 30 degrees, just that the increase of the temperature set actually already results in savings, power savings, but the quality of service that we deliver is unaffected at all. Yes.
So it's like there's a limit.
Yes.
That's great. And partnerships often play a crucial role in advancing sustainability agenda. Can you highlight any strategic collaborations or partnerships that PLDT and Smart may have?
Yeah, we have a couple of them, or many of them. One is I mentioned earlier, partnered with our vendors, or the equipment vendors are helping us in our biodiversity projects. On the e-waste collection side, no one can do it alone, so we're partnered, as I mentioned, with the DNR,
Yes,
the local
that's right.
government, and then the Eco Waste Coalition and UNIDO. So I guess in some of our other projects, you even partner with competitors, right? Because at the end of the day, we're looking for a planet that we can leave to our children.
Yes, that's right.
And in that area, there's no competition. There's only cooperation. So we're holding hands with, let's say, our partners in Telco or our competitors in Telco under our project under the UNGC, and we're co-chair of Planet Pillar in that respect. So there's no competition there. We might be competitors outside the door,
Yes,
but
that's
with
right.
respect to the planet and protecting the planet for our kids, partnership.
At the end of the day, we all live in one world.
Correct.
And of course, looking to the future, we want to find out what does PLDT and SMART have in store for us with regards to all the things that we have talked about.
Yeah, so one of the pillars that our CEO identified as key to making sure that PLDT goes and lives for another 95 years, one of the key pillars of strategy is sustainability and doing business responsibly. And though we talked a lot about environment, ESG or sustainability is not only about environment, it's also about social and governance. So under the social pillar, we have to make sure that there's diversity and inclusion, whether in the workplace or outside the workspace. And then, of course, business ethics, so corporate governance and behaving like a responsible corporate citizen. So those are all folded into sustainability, which we feel will carry PLDT through the next century, if you call it that. And to be able to ensure that, I guess the CEO scorecard and all of our scorecards include the KPI on sustainability to make sure that we measure what we're supposed to do and we get it done.
Okay, and finally, ma'am, do you have a message for all our viewers that how a regular Joe like us or as individuals can help out what you guys are doing already?
Yeah, so for sustainability, actually, it's not just a corporate thing. We can do sustainability in our everyday lives. In fact, our hashtag is actually sustainability every day. It's closing the light at home when you don't need it. It's making sure that the water doesn't run unnecessarily. So there are very many little things that you can do to be able to help preserve the planet for the next generation.
Thank you very much for dropping by at an early time.
Thank you, Diego.
And thank you very much for joining us, Melissa Vergel de Dios, First Vice President, Chief Sustainability Officer, and Head of Investor Relations of PLDT and SMART.